Welcome to Let's Talk on Houston City Beat. I'm Lisbet Newton, and today I have one of the most amazing men that I have ever met in my whole entire life, Joe Angel Pereira. Jose, welcome to Let's Talk on Houston City Beat. Thank you for being here and sharing your amazing story with us today.
Thank you, Lisbeth. Thank you for having me.
So tell us about everything changed for you when you went to Venezuela. Was it 5 years ago now?
No, it was 7 years ago now.
7 years. Okay. So 7 years ago, everything changed for you when you went to Venezuela on a business trip with Sitgo. And tell us about what happened after that.
Well, as I was telling you in off, I'm Venezuelan born. I began my career in the Venezuelan oil and gas, this PDVSA, and I was appointed here at Citgo in 2012. And during those years, I continued my career. At the end of my career, I became the CEO of the company. And I was kind of planning to get retired, but I received a call to go to some last minute meeting at the end of November 2017 in November. And that call became to be an ambush because we can talk a little bit about what happened, but I became, long story short, caught with my top 5 colleagues, and we became hostage of the Venezuelan government during 5 years. So that's more or less the long story short story.
Do you know why that happened? Why were the 6 of you selected as these hostages, or I guess the correct term is prisoners, but it's actually hostage. You were taken hostage. So why were the 6 of you selected?
Well, because by that time, by the way, the administration that is coming back, the second term now was in place at that moment. They were having some issues between the two countries, was geopolitical issues, and that is still are in place, by the way. So they were imposing sanctions to persons, to the government, and that there was a lot of geopolitical tensions, and we were in the wrong place in the wrong moment, so we were targeted and we were taken hostage and accused to be American spies, have committed treason. So they did us a sham trial, and we were caught in the middle of that thing and begin to get leverage to get us released.
Okay, and that took 5 years to get that release to happen, right?
Yes, this is something that maybe the people are not aware. And today I'm very connected to the hostage community here in the US. This is something that is called the hostage diplomacy. So the hostage diplomacy is a very sophisticated way to do diplomacy that this type of country, like Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, China, Afghanistan, all these countries, they apply. How it is? They target high-profile people, like in our case, and they target you, they accuse you, they put you some sham, they do a sham trial because the intention really is to leverage you, because maybe they're having some issue with a country, like in the case Venezuela was having issue with the US, and they begin to leverage, they begin to ask a lot of things to get us released.
Okay, and the 6 of you were released in exchange for Venezuelan prisoners in the US?
The 2 nephews of the president of Venezuela that were here in the
The
US.
two,
That was the
so
swap.
2 of Maduro's nephews were released in exchange for the 6 of you. And that took,
Uh-huh,
were they
yes.
were they in prison here in the US before you all were taken hostage?
Yes, they were here in a Florida prison because they were kind of a drug dealer or something like that. And yeah, they were already here. When that happened, that was one of the things they were asking. They began to ask a lot of things, but at the end, the negotiation began to be the negotiation between them and us. But before that, the Maduro regime was asking to get sanctions relief. They were asking to get lifted an oil embargo. They even were asking to get us swapped by some one of the partners of Maduro. That at the end, the negotiation, that's why it took so long, because they were asking back and forward. And finally, the decision was to do the negotiation for the two nephews of
And
Maduro.
during all this time, there is absolutely nothing you, the six of you, could do. There's absolutely nothing that your families could do. Y'all were basically stuck waiting for these two countries to come to some sort of agreement in exchange for your life.
That is the problem of the hostage diplomacy. That when you get caught in the middle of that situation, the only thing to get released is getting a negotiation between two countries. You get in the middle of anything going in between two countries. That is happening to, as I said, several countries. We have seen recently, by the way, yesterday there was this negotiation to release people from the Middle East. There was a high stake negotiation. And last year, people came from Iran, people came from China, another country. Always is the same. Always has to be some negotiation to get as you released.
This is to me this is such a fascinating, while at the same time such a disappointing situation to live through as humans. I come from Cuba. I was born in Cuba. I came here when I was 3 years old. So the situation that Venezuela is going through, I feel it because I've seen the country that I was born in and don't even know because I've never been back since I came here when I was 3. I see Venezuela in that same trajectory. And it always surprises me when I hear about people that I know, Cubans that I know, that go back to Cuba on vacation and completely unaware of the risks that at any point in time they could be taken hostage by the Cuban government for any reason. They don't need a justification. It doesn't matter if you're a US citizen. I'm assuming you're a US citizen. Is that correct? So at the
Mm-hmm,
time that you were
mm-hmm.
taken hostage, you were a US citizen. They still arrested you without cause. You spent 5 years in prison. How was that time in prison for the five of you? Tell us about that experience and how that shaped you into what you're doing today.
Well, that was a quite experience because it was an evolving situation. The first year was really terrible because the first year was the most tough for several reasons. One of the first reason is that because the tension began to go so high that they recalled the two ambassadors. So the first thing, there was no ambassador. So now we're caught in that situation without no ambassador. And we were separate the six. I was in a solitary confinement with one of my colleagues. We were alone. We didn't know where the other were, and the conditions were really tough. There was lack of food, lack of medicine. We began to have a lot of illness. The condition of where in the dungeon we were was really terrible. We went through a lot of things. So the first year was really terrible. But after the second year, because there was a commission of the UN that they intervened, the situation began to kind of evolve. Okay, kind of evolved. And when that happened, we at the end we were put the six together, and maybe the situation became a little bit better. But of course, all during the 5 years, the situation was terrible, really terrible.
Did they ever torture any of you, or it was just they captured you and held you hostage and treated you okay given the circumstances?
No, 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 definitively no. We didn't have physical torture per se, but a lot of psychological torture, and we saw physical torture. So at some point, I don't know if what is worse, knowing that you can be the next one and hearing what was going with others. So it become to be a really it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
So during these 5 years, finally you're released. You're reunited with your family. You were able to meet a grandson that you had not met. He was born during the time you were in
Mhm.
captivity. You were during the time you were held hostage. How was that reunion for you and for your family?
Oh well, I believe that will be a moment that we'll remember forever because we when we were released, we landed here in the San Antonio Army Brooks base, and when we landed, all our family was there. As you said, my grandson has born uh, 1 or 2 years before, so he was really very very tiny. curly hair guy, So, but he recognized me because my daughter-in-law, she kept always showing him photos, saying, "This is your grandpa. This is your grandpa." So he recognized me. So I have the photo when he recognized me, he began to run to me, "Hey, grandpa!" And it became like an iconic photo because there was some journalists they published in CNN, and then that photo appears all over the world.
Yeah,
So it's a moment. It's a moment that you will remember for the rest of your
that's a
life.
beautiful story. What do you still keep in touch with the other men who were held hostage at that time?
Yes, of course. How can you do it? Because you create that bond. I'm not saying that we see us every time we stay 5 years. It's like hey man, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
but but we see us from time to
Okay.
time. I saw them couple of maybe 1 month ago. We normally go because I'm today very connected to the foundation, the work in the hostage community. So we do every year in Washington. There is an event that is going to come very soon that is called the Hostage Week. So all the former hostages all over the world that has been release that are here in the U.S., they go to that event, and families of people that unfortunately are still hostage. So all the hostage community gather there. So it's a week where we gather with all the foundations. So you meet in person people that has been hostage. For example, I went in September. I was invited to an event that was in the closing of the UN General Assembly, and I met part of the families of the Middle East, the people that were released yesterday. I met part of those families. So,
Wow.
so because this is something that you become part of the family that you never asked to be.
Hmm.
You didn't sign to be family of the hostage community, but it becomes your family at the end.
Yeah, and you lived through that experience, and especially with your what you do now and your career, you're able to lend a voice of hope to the families, to the hostages when they're released. You're able to give them possibly a new perspective on how to look at things because there is trauma as you come out of. I've never been a hostage. I hope to never be one. There is trauma that comes through when you're released as a hostage that you have to learn to live again.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. For example, I have here my book. My book from Hero to Villain is the recount of my story. But my second book that I'm going to begin to write this year is going to be how is the life when you come back, because people sometimes believe that this is a love story that oh you came back, everything is okay, but it's the beginning of the new journey because you have to picture this. You have been lost in translation during years, so you're coming like in a time machine, and you come to a world that has evolved, but you have been in a cage, and then you come out. It's a different world. Your family is different. The time has passed. You find everything changed. The economy, your personal economy has changed
Hmm.
because maybe ridiculous things like, for example, having a credit card that has 5 years unpaid.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Uh, or taxes or I remember I went to take my driver license when I came back, and the lady that was taking me all the information, she saw me like I was a Martian. Where this guy is coming from? It disappeared for about 5 years. Where were you, my friend?
And
So sometimes the people don't understand
so,
this.
did you explain to her what had happened to you?
It, from time to time, I had to go back and explain and explain. I have a letter where I was official classified as a wrongfully detained hostage. So I had sometimes to explain to people what had happened.
Hmm.
People, this is something that is so weird.
Yeah.
It's so rare. So there's not too many people that have gone through this situation. So it's difficult for people to understand it.
So let me ask you this about Sitgo specifically, because you were working for Sitgo here in Houston. How did Sitgo treat your family, your wife, during this time that you were held hostage?
In the beginning was kind of difficult because remember that Citgo is a company that by that time people are not familiar about the thing with Citgo, but during the first year of our captivity, Citgo was under the umbrella of the Maduro
Hmm.
government. So can you imagine we were not being well treated? After there was have been some changes, the situation evolved, but has been difficult because it's a Venezuelan owned company. It's difficult that relation.
Okay, okay. And did they reach out to did the executives here in Houston reach out to your wife? Did they try to help her? Were you still getting paid during those 5 years?
Well, I don't want to talk too much about that because this is kind of
Hmm.
complicated. I prefer to skip
Okay,
a little
okay,
bit
that's
that.
fine. That's fine. I have to ask because
But
I have all
please,
these questions, and if you don't want to answer it, that's fine.
but
I
it's
understand.
no, no, but it's really complex. I prefer not to deep dive in that. It's a complex
Okay,
situation.
okay, perfect. That's fine. So now you are working as a coach, as a professional coach. Tell us about how that experience, going through the hostage situation, how that has changed to position you to where you are today, that you're able to help people work past their biggest hurdles.
Because I discovered one of the things that I discovered first that I had all my life being in leadership positions. So I had the leadership skills. But really, I tested my real leadership skill was during my captivity. Today, I have a speech that is called From Captivity to Freedom, where I say that the real leadership is tested when you're going through situations that move your floor, when where you are taken from your comfort zone. In that moment, is that really you're going to test if you are a true leader or not. So I needed to go through that. So, but one of the things that I discovered is that for some reason we needed to survive, and I say that everybody has inside something that I call the unbreakable leadership spirit inside yourself. It's a power within. Everybody has that power, and somebody can say, "No, but you have some abilities." No, I was a regular guy that went through this situation, and I needed to survive. And by the way, my five colleagues did the same. So we decided to create a survivor plan, and that thing I have been reflecting during all this year, and that's why I created my leadership and resilient coaching program. I have a leadership program where I put together all those leadership skills that I had and my survivor skills, because when you're in any position in a company, you maybe are not a physical hostage, but sometimes you're hostage of situations that you have in your life, in your business, and sometimes you don't know how to handle it. So this is the things today I teach. And another thing is that sometimes when you're in a leadership position, you are so focused in your climbing the corporate ladder that you forget your personal life. And this is something that I also teach how you can combine your business success and your personal fulfillment, because this is something that happened to me. So this is not the woo woo. This is something that I experienced. So I walk the walk and I can talk the talk because I went through it. So today, part of my coaching is exactly that: how you can combine that business success with your personal fulfillment. And this is something that sometimes you forget. Sometimes you forget.
Okay. And how can people find? I know you've got this one book, that's from hero to villain. You've got another book coming out here soon.
Yes, my book is going to be a trilogy. By the way, my book, when I wrote it originally, was a 600-page book. So my publisher said, "Hey, who is going to read that? Only the Bible you can read it." So they decided to do my book, this one From Hero to Villain, that is a 220-page book. That is the recount of my story based on the memoir of the letters that I could smuggle with my wife during years. Okay, so that book is based on those letters. and has the profound reflection of what we're talking today. But my second book, that is part of that, is already written, is the recount is what happened when you come back. And the third book is more like my family story, because I come from a family that we are four generations of oil and gas worker of Venezuela. It's going to be more about the all the story of the Venezuelan geopolitical thing tied to the oil and gas. So it's going to be a trilogy.
Okay. Well, I really look forward to reading that first book that you have and following up with those other two books that you're working on now. And thank you so much, Jose, for taking a time to share your story with us on Let's Talk on Houston City Beat. Jose and I connected through the Houston City Beat community group on Facebook, and I'm really excited to share your story and also continue to touch base with you and share these pieces of great nuggets, these golden nuggets that you have about how people can overcome their biggest obstacles in life. Not everyone might be taken hostage, but there are other situations that can happen in life that are just as traumatizing for people. So thank you, Jose, for everything that you do, for taking such a bad experience and turning it into hope for many people.
Let me tell you that anybody that wants to contact me, I have my webpage. I forgot to mention it. My webpage is joseconnect.com. Yes. You can go there and you can contact me. Very easy, joseconnect.com. I also are giving speaking talks about this, and well, you can connect there, joseconnect.com.
Well, thank you so much, Jose, for being on Let's Talk on Houston City Beat, and I look forward to many more episodes with you.
Thank you, Lisbet. Thank you for having me.